if we're involved in struggle, if we're involved in being active on the job, active in the streets, demonstrating or whatever, that's what people want to see. They don't want a tame cat union that's just going to be there and say yes, yes, yes to them. They want people who will stand up for their rights, who will have a go. And that will then generate people to come and join the club. You know, I mean, people will join the club if they're winning. But if you're not winning, you know, they say, well, what's the use? But if you're out there taking the fight up and you're winning the battles and you're really giving them... And CFMEU haven't lost too many battles. We might have lost a few dollars along the way, but we haven't. We've had royal commissions, we've had inquiries, we've had court cases, and no one's in jail. Everyone's having a go, and they're going to keep going. And under the new leadership that's taking over the CFMEU now, I really think that our union will be at the forefront of many, many more struggles. I can remember being involved in union meetings at Port Melbourne with the Seamen's Union, and you know, it was in the middle of the Vietnam War. It was full on. It was a great grounding for a young bloke, you know. And but I give it away and got involved in the building industry and worked as a rigger, as a labourer, dogman, all those sorts of things, and become a shop steward. Then got actively involved with the union. And I was asked in 1972 to come on as a temporary organiser for 3 months. After being involved as an organiser for a couple of years, the secretary at the time left, and I took over as a secretary. I got voted in then to take on that position, and we were involved in many campaigns. But none the least establishing the union as a relevant fighting unit, as being relevant to our members and to workers' well-being. You know, so we recruited a very strong team of good rank and file delegates, a strong team of organisers. We got support from the likes of Norm Gallagher and our federal people, who we had tremendous comradeship with. Blokes like Jimmy Bacon, who ended up being the Premier of Tasmania. He was an organiser here in the Northwest from '76 for a few years. Johnny Cummins, the late Johnny Cummins, probably the best union organiser that I've ever worked with and ever seen.
Belt you on the head with a baton on the last one to say that you cop and sweep. Righto, but there's no prizes. There's no prizes for us having a pitch fight with this crew.
Hey, look, what are you doing?
He wants his job back. Leave him alone.
Look at John. No, come on,
No,
John.
take it easy, son. Leave him alone.
That's it, John.
He only wants his
You
job.
know, we had big campaigns to be relevant in the Northwest, campaigns in Perth. I can remember when Camo come down from the Northwest, he said to me, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, I'll tell you what I want you to do, Johnny. I want you to get no ticket, no start established in Western Australia, the same as we've done in Victoria and elsewhere. We had major blues, you know. They don't call it the Wild West for nothing. I mean, it's full of right-wing, the fascists, absolute fascists. You know, some of people, like years ago, there was a fellow named Alan Rocher. He owned a company called Trident Building Company. He ended up being Senator Rocher. I mean, you know, they would have been happy enough to pull out the gun and shoot you. I mean, that's the type of things. You know, we had disputes in the Northwest where we were on picket lines. I remember we had a major dispute on a picket line on a company with a picket line at Telfer. And that's in the area where there's lots of big stations and old station owners and all the rest of it. And I remember one station owner coming out and telling us to get on our way in carrying a 303 rifle and saying he had been in Changi prison during the war and the Japs were better than us Como bastards. We were out there fighting for wages and conditions for workers. But there's been many campaigns that we've been involved in, and I don't beat my chest and say it was all us. I mean, many of the campaigns have been the whole trade union movement. Probably one of the biggest and most memorable campaigns was what was called the Third Wave campaign back in the 90s, where we had mobilised 30,000 people in the streets to march on the Parliament, because the Liberal government were going to bring in the most draconian legislation to knock us over. They didn't bring in the legislation, and as a result of that, we picketed the Parliament there for 6 months, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what's up there now is opposite Parliament is what's called the Workers' Embassy. It's got heritage listing, and I thank the Labor government for doing that, but it's heritage listed, and it's a great monument to the struggles of workers in Western Australia. It's interesting to see all the tourist buses go by and they point it out. So, it's been many over, 40 years, it's just been hundreds of different campaigns. The MUA campaign was a fabulous unifying campaign that we were involved with, and we won. We didn't win every round, but we certainly won the fight. And the MUA stand proud, as we do, as a result of that. So yeah, I've had lots of good times. I personally think that I've lived through the best times of the trade union movement, but unfortunately now, even under Labor governments, we see us being denied the right to organise, the right to get on sites to represent workers. Workers are being screwed left, right and centre. Companies that have traditionally been unionised have seen the way to de-unionise their sites because governments are protecting them. You've got the ABCC, now Fair Work Australia, prosecuting unionists, prosecuting the union itself, millions of dollars being spent of workers' money defending these charges. I can tell you that if we don't do it as a union movement, if we don't collectively fight to retain what we've got, let alone achieve better conditions, but just to retain what we got, we will see people here working just what Gina Reinhardt said the other day, $2 a day. We've got guys who are over here from Europe and from Asia who have come in as guest labour, who have been exploited to the tune of being paid $8 and $10 an hour. It's just criminal. And governments know it's happening and don't do a single thing about it. We can't rely on governments. Doesn't matter whether it's Labor governments, whether it's the Greens, whether it's whoever it is. At the end of the day, they're politicians, and they really they'd sell their mother for a vote. So I have never put much faith in thinking governments will look after the workers. Workers got to look after themselves. They do that through their union, and that's the way it should be. The exploitation of foreign labour, particularly Asian labour, where people are brought in on 457 visas and are just treated as indentured slaves. If they complain about wages or conditions or safety or anything, they face deportation within 28 days. They're sent back. So naturally they don't complain, They'll work for much less. We've got major builders in this town, Singaporean-based major developers and builders building units all around the river, and they're using labour from Asia, from Ireland, from New Zealand, and from Australia, who are prepared to work for much less than the base award, let alone side allowances and all of the conditions. And these people will continue to exploit them. and you look at their profit margins, they're making 50 million, a year now profit, whereas a couple of years ago, a particular company that I'm thinking of, they made 10 million. Now they're up there, but the workers aren't getting a share of it. And again, we've got a very big issue of trying to convince those workers of the relevance of the union and what the union can do for them, etc. But it's just what we do every day of the week. I mean, one of the big issues that's topical today is the big dispute that's going on the East Coast, particularly in Melbourne, with Grocon. And that's got very clear parallels to what happened in Western Australia. When the Libs got in, they did everything in their power to prevent us organising on projects, and they made it very easy for companies to opt out of EBAs and what have you. Now, Grocon will say to you, we signed an EBA, but at the end of the day, Grocon are trying to de-unionise their sites, trying to make the unions a non-event on their sites, and they're doing it in every shady way possible. You noticed the front page of The Age a couple of days ago, you had Grocon's people meeting with the Comancheros, photographed. They aren't having a quiet cup of coffee. I mean, that's about just standover tactics being brought into the industry. It's about people being used. And we have lots of, and we don't hide from it, there's lots of what they call bikies, work in the building industry. There's lots of them, and generally we don't have a problem. But when we have situations where they're going off trying to get them to be used as muscle to scare, to intimidate workers. Now, Grocon's people are doing everything they possibly can by employing those sort of people, bouncers in Melbourne, who are going around the building sites telling people they shouldn't join the union. They can't, they're even going as far as telling them what clothes they can wear. They can't wear a t-shirt with a badge on. Now, we have the police saying to outlaw motorcycle gangs that they can't come into a hotel wearing their colours. We have people saying you can't wear footy jumpers and things because there might be. We now got them saying that workers can't wear their clothing, their whatever they want to wear. They can't have stickers on their hats and things like that. I mean, for Christ's sake, you'll need permission to go to the toilet next. Now, at the end of the day, these workers have had a guts full of it. There is a few people working for Grocon, and only a few who have crossed the picket line. They live with their decisions, but at the end of the day, they think that, that's what they should do. They've got to live with that for the rest of their life. I have no tolerance of scabs. People make a conscious decision to do that, then they have to live with the decisions that they've made. It's interesting, they have no problem wearing first aid stickers or a Grocon sticker or anything else, but the only sticker you can't wear is a union sticker. It's a voluntary organisation. People are entitled to be in unions, and as much as we get slammed and get fined for trying to force people to join unions, Grollo and them have got no right to try and discourage people from joining the union and being active in their union. As I said earlier, no good joining the union and not being active. You've got to be active. One of the senior officials of the Victorian branch said to me, there's a lot of virgins here. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, there's a lot of people who have never been in a blue before, and you watch these young blokes. And a lot of the young people were really putting their shoulder to the wheel, were very active, very vocal, very strong, that we had to defend the conditions that we got. The right of entry is probably, for me personally, coercive powers, all the rest of it that we've seen come down by the ABCC and the Coal Royal Commission are not the real issue. The real issue is the right to organise, the right to be able to organise workers, to protect themselves, to fight for better wages and conditions. That's what it's about. And, we're just going to keep having to take it up to them.